crypto spotlight series, and we have the spotlight shining on, a rising star. I think one of my very good friends. I know him since about 2017 now. Tushar is leading a 200 million market cap project called Persistence One. It's one of the top protocols in India, dedicated towards bridging decentralized finance and the traditional finance space. I'll let Tushar sort of speak a little bit more, but yeah, I'll keep on sharing some bits that I have from Tushar's background because I've known him for a while. But yeah, Tushar, welcome.
Thank you, Akshay. Thank you, Akshay, for having me. I think we first met in Hyderabad, IBC Hyderabad, almost, I think, more than 3 years ago. And so it's been a phenomenal journey since then. I can go into a quick introduction. So when we had met, I was the first employee at Lunex Ventures, which is the crypto arm of a traditional venture capital fund based out of Singapore called Golden Gate Ventures. And Golden Gate does traditional VC investments. They wanted to set up a crypto fund, and I was running a crypto podcast back then called Decrypt Asia, and that's how I ended up meeting Kendrick, who was my boss at Lunex. And so at Lunex, I was involved in everything from incorporating the fund structuring, working with lawyers, tax advisors, fund administrators, cybersecurity consultants, Monetary Authority of Singapore as the local regulator, and then was involved in fundraising. We raised capital from a publicly listed company in Japan, the VC arm of a sovereign wealth fund, and multiple family offices, mostly in Southeast Asia, and then deployed that capital into some equity deals, so the picks and shovels around crypto, around the crypto industry, and then also did investments both in the primary and secondary markets as far as tokens are concerned. I always wanted to be on the other side of the fence in terms of being an operator as opposed to a capital allocator. That's how Persistence came about. I'd been based out of Singapore for almost close to a decade. But I basically, in terms of building Persistence, was looking at the best place to set Persistence up, and kind of looked at the traditional startup landscape. India has about any between kind of 35 to 45 unicorns today on the non-crypto side, and 80% of them were born after the year 2010, which is almost 10 to 15 years after startups of similar sizes came about in the US and China. And so my thesis was and is that something similar will happen in the crypto space as well. And so that's why I decided to build out the team in India, and have been running Persistence for now close to 2 years. We've been out of stealth for about a year and a half, and happy to dig into what we've been up to at Persistence.
Great, and I think what a year has it been for Persistence team. But okay, so just to add a few things before we delve into sort of the context of Tushar and his team's achievements. I think few know that Tushar has been one of the key stakeholders that brought Cosmos to India, right? I think he's been very supportive of Indian talent. I think he's going to tell us a bit about some of his investments as well. But I think since day one, Tushar had some attraction towards this space and sort of some level to take the whole ecosystem to. Tushar, I'd love to hear about your inspiration behind getting into this space and now doing what you're doing at Persistence first.
Yeah, so I mean, I wish. My journey was at some level chance as well, which is how it is like for a lot of other people. So prior to getting into crypto, I was working as a consultant to the banking industry for about 4.5 years, both at a bigger consulting firm as well as a very boutique management consulting firm. This is all based in mostly Singapore and Hong Kong. And I was pretty disillusioned with consulting and wanted to make a transition to the startup space, either as a VC or as an operator. So I was attending multiple events, speaking to multiple VCs, sending VCs deal flows, and in that process, came across crypto, started allocating capital to crypto, and
Mm-hmm.
then as the cliche goes, kept getting stuck deeper and deeper into the rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, like fast forward 4.5 years, here we are. But it kind of just start. I was looking to. There were certain fundamental things about life that I was clear about, but
Mm-hmm.
not from a career perspective. So I knew I wanted to be in a place where the downside was 1x, but the upside was 100x. So crypto kind of fits that bill, like no other industry. I knew that I wanted to be leveraged up on capital, media, and tech, which is something that Naval talks about. So the media part was the podcast for me,
Mm-hmm.
uh, Decrypt Asia. The capital part was Lunex, and the tech part is persistence. So the best individuals, best on companies around the world are leveraged up on these three factors.
Absolutely.
Media through building a brand, technology, obviously, and then capital in terms of raising capital from
Mm-hmm.
VCs or high net worth individuals. So these, I was clear that I wanted to be in a fast paced environment. I wanted to take on risks. I wanted to do exciting things. I wanted to be leveraged up on capital, media, and tech, but I didn't know which industry I would end up in. I knew the skill sets I had. I knew what interested me as well, kind of. And then crypto just happened to, be there. And it was a little bit of luck as well, because I was based in Singapore, and, crypto was, sort of, especially in kind of 2017, 18, was hugely popular in Singapore. So there was a bit of thought process, bit of luck that led me to this industry.
Mm-hmm. That's very cool. So I mean, if you see, it's quite ironical that you were working early on with banks and now kind of you're in the crypto space, which to a lot of people would seem like it's a parallel, so to say, right? An alternate financial space or alternate payment space altogether.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and again, there's a whole bunch of people in crypto who are just anti like financial institutions or anti-establishment. I think in my case, that's not true at all. I think, if we look at what the internet did to media, so, back in the day, if you had to consume content, you would do it through a radio channel, through newspaper, through TV. And today, a lot of that content is, consumed on different platforms, whether that's, Facebook or,
Mm-hmm.
Instagram, or even some of the OTT platforms and things like that. So, essentially, but, newspapers still exist, and,
Mm-hmm.
television still exists, and, even radio still exists. And, but, there has been sort of this shift in power from um, like a few people controlling the newspaper, or few people controlling a radio channel, few people controlling whether you could actually write in a newspaper
Mm-hmm.
or actually become a radio jockey, um, to now everyone being able to create that content and the public sort of deciding. There are still seats of people who hold power, which is the owners of these platforms, right? The owner of Facebook, and owner of Netflix, and owner of LinkedIn, owner of Twitter. But there is still, relatively speaking, greater freedom for the end users to express themselves.
Absolutely.
And I think something similar is happening with money and capital today,
Mm-hmm.
where instead the equivalent of the newspapers and the radio channels and television channel owners has just shifted in the context of capital, from
Mm-hmm.
financial institutions. That seat is shifting, and more people have access to these products now.
Mm-hmm.
But there are still, that seat of power is sort of shifting slowly.
Absolutely.
But at the end of the day, at some level, there is increased democratization of access, at least.
Absolutely. Right.
Yeah.
So you see that having kind of similar effect in the internet industry as well, as now crypto becomes like something that's democratizing financial services, or I wouldn't just say investing. Right. There's so many. Earlier we used to be getting to invest in companies once they're significantly evolved. Today, for example, persistence.one, who we could get involved probably in the first year of their journey, right? And how cool would that be, right? And I see that happening with a lot of,
Absolutely, man.
yeah,
Yeah.
good projects. Yeah. So
Yeah,
so I mean
absolutely.
that's
I mean, yeah, on that point, I'm sure there's a whole bunch of people in India as well who are not that excited about owning like Maruti stock or
exactly.
like, or Hero stock. They want to own like Zomato stock, or
Uh-huh.
they want to own like Hotstar stock, right? These are
Absolutely.
companies that they can relate with, but
Uh-huh.
it's not easy to get access to those shares.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah.
So okay, so now how does this sort of transition to? I think they're like a suite of products. We have one after the other. A really promising line of things coming in the persistence ecosystem. So tell me all about it.
Yeah, so from a high level perspective, we've had an interesting journey, and I think you and I have spoken at length about some of the products that we're building. I think that has evolved as well as
Mhm.
our understanding of the industry and where it's headed, has evolved. So fundamentally speaking, and to make it easy for some of the listeners to understand as well, high level we have two categories of products. All of these products, by the way, are within the realm of what we call financial products. So there is some level of buying and selling or some level of financing that is happening, regardless of which product it is. The first category of products is more on the non-fungible tokens side, and so within that context we have Comdex, which is a decentralized commodity trading platform that exists. Some of the folks in the audience might be familiar with CryptoKitties or some of the other non-fungible token platforms that are available. Ultimately, every commodity, so wheat originating from Canada is different from wheat originating from Australia. And so like how every CryptoKitty is unique, every physical commodity is unique as well. And so we just represent these commodities on the platform using NFTs. So that's the first category. Obviously, there are certain other things that we're doing within the NFT space. The second category has been all on the proof of stake side of things. So Bitcoin and Ethereum are the two biggest cryptocurrencies, and have stood the sort of, relatively speaking, the longest amount of time. Obviously, there are other currencies that have been there for longer, but and they're both proof of work. But since 2018, we have seen a transition from proof of work to proof of stake. And I was not early enough in the industry to be a Bitcoin miner or an Ethereum miner, but I was early enough in the space and had good mentors to bet early on proof of stake. And so Persistence itself is a proof of stake project as well. Now we're doing multiple things within the proof of stake world. Two things in particular. One is one of our subsidiaries is called Audit One, which is a validator or like the equivalent of a miner in the proof of work ecosystem. So Audit One is one of the biggest validators in Southeast Asia and South Asia. Currently manage about 300 million assets under delegation. And the other product that I'm super excited about that we're launching at the end of the month is called P-Stake, which is a liquid staking application, which basically allows folks to generate additional liquidity from already staked asset. So it's essentially trying to solve a problem within the crypto space. And so some of the users may not be that familiar with um, with that problem exactly. But yeah, so I mean, just to reiterate, we have a couple of products on the NFT side, but I just want to talk about Comdex because that's the one that is already live and in production. But on the
Sure.
proof of stake side, we have, Audit One and then P-Stake
Mhm.
that I'm super excited about. And then obviously these are all end user facing products. Comdex is
Mhm.
an end user facing product. Audit and P-Stake are end user facing products. Persistence itself is more of an infrastructural play, where Persistence itself operates in the
Mhm.
background, and a lot of these applications run on the infrastructure created by Persistence.
Mhm. Absolutely. And so I think there are two things that immediately caught my mind, and I think NFTs are broadly popular, so we will touch upon that as well. But I think it'd be interesting to talk about liquid staking. I think it's kind of the trend
Yeah.
if you look at,
Yeah.
right, and I would say it has a lot of potential for token holders, right? So XPRT holders in this case can use their tokens while they're staked. They could
Correct.
possibly also take that to other environments, like real world assets whenever they come, because I see Comdex is definitely inching very close to real world commodities, right? I mean, you that seems like a huge area or huge upside to sort of grab as an opportunity itself, right? So let's start with liquid staking it first, and then learn a bit about how big is the commodity trading environment.
Yeah, so I think for now, the liquid staking environment and commodity trading are sort of operating in silos, and I see that in the foreseeable future. So P-Stake and Comdex are sort of independent products. I
Uh-huh.
think for a fairly long time. But I think talking about liquid staking, um, I think if we talk about numbers today, if you
Hmm.
go to defipulse.com or DeFi Llama, the
Hmm.
TVL, or the total value locked in
Hmm.
smart contracts in uh, in the DeFi ecosystem is anywhere between 60 to 80 billion dollars at
Hmm.
any given time. Different platforms have different numbers, but I think
Uh-huh.
ballpark it kind of stays within that. What is heavily ignored is the proof of stake world,
Hmm.
where you have the total market cap of proof of stake coins today. I checked a couple of weeks ago, so maybe the numbers have fallen because the market has fallen a little bit. But and these all stats from stakingrewards.com. I think it should be somewhere around 600 to 650 billion today, and out of that, about 25 to 26% has been staked. So about
Uh-huh.
$100 billion out of this 600 to 650 billion dollars has been staked. What is and usually people talk about staking in the context of DeFi, but
Uh-huh.
staking in the context of POS is very different, because you're actually taking part in consensus of the chain, which is you're essentially doing what the miners do today,
Uh-huh.
and that's why you get rewarded. So with ETH moving from proof of work to proof of stake,
Hmm.
once that transition actually happens, when you stake your ETH,
Hmm.
as opposed to a governance or application coin, when you stake your ETH, the protocol itself is paying you similar to how they would pay the miners.
Uh-huh.
Um, and so hence proof of stake. If you have staked, you get rewarded for consensus as opposed to POW. And so this is one thing that a lot of people miss out on,
Hmm.
or it's a very nuanced difference. And so essentially this $100 billion that has been staked and is earning about 6, 7, 8% returns. But you
Uh-huh.
can't do anything else with these assets. And so what we're doing is we're issuing another representative coin, that
Hmm.
while these assets stay staked, you can use the representative coin, like you
Hmm.
mentioned, within the DeFi ecosystem. So you can use the representative coin as collateral to borrow, USDC. You can supply liquidity to a DEX while
Hmm.
also, keeping the coin staked. So the ability for the end user to generate additional returns and rewards, um, goes higher, which is what we're trying to do. And that's why I mentioned in the beginning also that it is a problem. We're not really solving a problem for the world with this.
Hmm.
We're just solving a problem that exists within the crypto space.
Absolutely.
um, Whereas with Comdex, and talking about commodity trading, that's a whole different approach, where you're actually trying to solve a problem for someone in the world,
Hmm.
or what we call a quote unquote real world problem.
Uh-huh.
And so the thing with what we have realized over a period of time is the thing with real world problems is that it takes a lot longer to solve them.
Absolutely.
Um, and so while we stick to our longer term vision of trying to solve these real world problems using this technology, in the short run, we don't want to lose mind share of our
Absolutely.
community members
Mhm.
or crypto native folks. And that's why we're kind of straddling across, trying to solve real world problems on a longer term basis
Uh-huh.
while trying to not lose mind share from a shorter term basis, and hence creating this suite of products, as we call it.
Mhm. Absolutely. And if I'm right, Comdex was the first product in
Yeah.
the suite, so to say, right? And then
Yeah.
came the protocol. And then I think
Yes.
NFT is definitely, the whole framework is very exciting. And I think Interchain Foundation has also come to sort of
Yeah.
support that in some way. Could you tell us a bit about, the NFT framework and how does that sort of,
Yeah.
seem like an opportunity for the
Yeah.
persistence ecosystem?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right in terms of the sequence of events. So
Mhm.
started working on trying to solve a use case, which was in the
Mhm.
commodity trading world. Moved after not finding a great solution at the protocol level, moved down the technology stack to create that protocol,
Mhm.
and then now we're sort of moving back up to the application layer again with things like p-stake and things like that.
Mhm.
And so trying to create the entire tech stack all the way from some of the infrastructural stuff, the middleware stuff, but also the end user facing applications. As far as nfts are concerned, obviously ERC 721 has been sort of the biggest standard that is out there that is used, but we've seen some competitors come about, right? So Flow, for example, has
Mhm.
come up. They have their own NFTs, and NBA Top Shot was hugely popular in the US. Um, and so, what our thought process is, and again, you have the Bitcoin maximalists and you have the Ethereum maximalists. From the very beginning, we've maintained that we're interoperability maximalists. We believe
Mhm.
that there are different chains that offer different things, whether in terms of security or speed or ease of use, that will cater to different kinds of use cases. And
Mhm.
so we just want to basically optimize for what is the best thing for the end user. So with respect to NFTs as well, and I will give all the credit to Deepanshu, who's the CTO of Persistence,
Mhm.
who has driven all of the R&D and the work, as far as NFTs are concerned. So our first experience with NFTs was on the Comdex side, where as I
Mhm.
mentioned, we represented these real world assets on chain, using NFTs. And over a period of time, we worked with the Interchain Foundation to create interchain standards for NFTs. And and so that framework has led to what is called asset mantle. I don't want to
Mhm.
confuse the audience by bringing up another product, but since you brought it up, so we've created this interchain framework, or what we call inter NFT, where we're
Mhm.
trying to see how NFTs can be as interoperable as possible. Because people talk about interoperability or creation of these bridges for fungible tokens.
Uh-huh.
Where, a lot of people don't talk about interoperability of NFTs or moving of NFTs from one chain to another.
Mhm.
It's a lot of work that is still sort of research driven, but we have been in the background sort of been working on use cases as well that we'll sort of release as and when they mature. Yeah.
Absolutely. So again, so then if you're talking about interoperability, do you think is it just the Cosmos way, or Polkadot also fits in some way? And do you think layer twos have a role to play there as well?
Yeah. So again, part of being an interoperability maximalist is that there is no maximalism, right? So you want
Absolutely.
as many assets to be on as many chains as possible,
Uh-huh.
and that's the approach that we take at Persistence as well, where and today you have Ren protocol, for example, with Ren
Mhm.
BTC.
Mhm.
Ren, in fact, was the one, and WBTC as well, that facilitated the movement of BTC from the Bitcoin blockchain to the Ethereum
Mhm.
blockchain. And so since then, there have been a lot of bridges that have been built. Solana, for example, has its own bridge called Wormhole.
Mhm.
Near has built a bridge with Ethereum as well. I'm
Mhm.
forgetting the name. Um, there is a bridge between Cosmos and Polkadot as well. And
Mhm.
so, the future is just, as many assets, and ultimately the end users win because of this.
Absolutely.
Because no one cares whether something is on Ethereum or Binance Smart Chain or, on Cosmos or Polkadot or Solana or Near or Avalanche. Ultimately, users care about, what are they getting.
Mhm.
And obviously right now we're still only like 13 years into the industry, and only 6 years into having like smart contracts with Ethereum since 2015. So that's why we're still talking about a lot of the infrastructural stuff. We're still
Mhm.
talking about POW versus POS. We're still talking
Absolutely.
about layer 1 versus layer 2.
Mhm.
But I think like 3, 4, 5 years from now, like we don't really talk about iOS versus Android, right? Like it's like, yeah, like if you're releasing an application over a period of time, you need to be on both iOS and Android. It's a
Absolutely.
given. Yeah,
Mhm.
so I think it's very similar to that. Um, and there are people trying to create new operating systems still, right? Like, and which could be driven by like political motives as well, like what Huawei is doing in China. They're trying to create their own operating system, and I think Reliance has its own operating system. So I think those kinds of things will happen, but like end users don't care about that.
Exactly.
They care about a good user experience. They care about getting basically what they want to do and doing that in the most efficient manner. And that's the stage which this industry will get to as well in the next few years.
Absolutely, and I think we do care about not being restricted to an environment as well, which is
Yeah.
something that I think none of the big techs are understanding. But that's something that fundamentals of crypto sort of enable in a lot of ways, right? Because you see these open source networks, there's no stopping them to interact with one another, right? Like you spoke about RAP BTCs, bringing them to the DeFi or the Ethereum world, right? So I
Yeah.
mean that's very interesting how all of the fundamentals of problems that we see today in the current internet, and the way it's offered to us, all of them sort of get solved. So it'd be very interesting to see how this evolves. I see some of the products are also seeing good value in the persistence ecosystem. I think definitely the Comdex one, if I remember correctly, last year itself there was quite some value when it was, I mean, just out of out to experiment, right? So do you want to share a bit about that?
I'm not sure what you mean, but in terms of transaction volumes, there's
Yes. Mhm.
now total about $100 million worth of commodities that have been
uh,
transacted on the platform.
mhm.
And again, given the size of the market, that's still a drop in the ocean. But it's just trying to yeah. Again, when you're trying to disrupt like a traditional industry, it just takes a lot longer, and the life cycle
Absolutely.
is very different. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's been it's been going along and doing very well. But yeah, I mean, Comdex is like I mentioned, it's a um, like I don't run Comdex. Comdex is run by its own business and tech team who are familiar with how commodity trading works, or they have networks and
Mhm.
expertise in that industry. They just use the persistence infrastructure,
Mhm.
in the background. Whereas some of the other applications are being driven in-house. So things like Audit One, Stake are being actually built by the persistence team itself. And so that's sort of the clear differentiation.
Absolutely, and because they empower the protocol directly, right? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
protocol and the users sort of. So I mean, it's very interesting how you've very clearly articulated, and I see that kudos to you on brilliantly articulating everything on persistence website as well. I think it's very clear from the get go, what all is happening, how everything's sort of well differentiated from each other, right? That brings me to a point. How does one get involved in the persistence ecosystem? So we have a lot of people that are building applications, right? So about 400 startups are already come out of blockchain India, a couple of YC companies, quite a lot of stuff's happening. So how do you invite these guys? What's the opportunity for them in the persistence ecosystem? And also, since you've analyzed the market quite nicely before you got into the space itself, and now also because that's your day job, to be very frank, how do you see they should be looking at opportunities in this space and at persistence both?
Yeah, so I think in the past, and we've talked about it as well. A lot of projects try to engage with developers from the get-go,
Hmm.
in the spirit of decentralization as well. What I have realized and seen over a period of time, with some of the more successful projects, especially now, is that you start off in a relatively centralized manner and you decentralize over a period of time. And I think that approach seems to work a lot better. I think it's worked really well for Terra as well, where
Absolutely.
Terra built Chai on their own, which
Hmm.
is
Hmm.
their non-crypto user-facing application. They built Anchor protocol. They built Mirror protocol. Once they built this basic structure, then everyone else wanted to build on Terra. Solana went through a similar process where essentially no one was building on Solana
Hmm.
until SPF from FTX came and said, we're going to build Serum and then build Radium. And now a whole bunch of people come and, they want to build. So our thought process is very similar to that, where right now, um, we're sort of building things in-house and not doing that much developer outreach
Hmm.
at this stage.
Hmm.
So in terms of getting involved, we're actively hiring across the board.
Hmm.
Business, tech. Basically, if you're, we don't care about degrees. We don't care about how old you are. We don't care about your experience. As long as you have curiosity and hunger, we want to work with you. And then we're working with folks across the board, in terms of roles on the business side, tech side. Even if we don't have an opening, if we like someone, we'll create a role for them. So I think the best way is to, come join the persistence team. Otherwise, of course, I would encourage everyone to have exposure to, the persistence token, support us on social media, all of those things. But yeah, there will come a time when we'll engage with developers as well. We are kind of doing things around it, but we're not pushing that too aggressively.
So I
And
would say
even
it's
the
probably so I would say it's probably
sorry.
at the alpha stage wherein you're experimenting with how that would pan out, and once you have a clear framework, that's when you'll sort of open it up to more people.
Yeah, and I think people will come at some level, automatically. I think once you find product market fit, then everyone wants to get associated with you.
I
It's
mean, you
like, yeah.
you found quite some product market fits. I mean, $100 million is no joke, right?
Yes.
From one of the apps that have been built on top of persistence.
Yes, yes, but again, I think it's it's not product market fit to a level where you have clear business models defined or things like that. So I think that is still something that we're trying to figure out. So I wouldn't say we have found product market fit, but I think we're at a stage where we're sort of 3 to 6, 9 months away from getting to that point. And I can see that we've kind of gone through a meandering journey, but now it's very clear. And also in the past, we've spoken about this as well. I think our approach was a little bit haphazard, because we were also trying to figure out what areas to go after, what areas to attack. But now we have a lot more clarity.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I mean, overall, we're still fairly young, right? Like we're just 2 years old, so it's still really, really early in the journey, for us. Yeah,
And also, you're doing quite a bit of angel investing as well, right?
yeah. I mean, so again, that's just part of my initial thesis that I spoke about. Primarily, it's just supporting other Indian founders,
Uh-huh.
uh, and yeah, basically, yeah. If there are any builders, we like I basically write like blind checks into Indian founders. As a knock on wood, it's the industry has been super kind to me, and I've gone through. I think especially the initial phase is super tough when you don't know how to pay your first employee or how to pay the lawyers for an agreement that has been drafted, or how to incorporate entities. So I've been fortunate enough to go through that journey of like the first 50 to $100,000. That's the hardest to come about.
Absolutely.
And so from my perspective, that's where I really like to support founders, because
Mhm.
that is where they truly need that support. After you raise and all of that, then yeah, then it's all like marginal help, but initially it's like exponential help. And so just
Absolutely.
leveraging on my journey to, and so yeah, if there are any like aspiring founders in the audience, happy to support and be part of your journey as well.
So what would you say is something that's most exciting to you as an opportunity, not just from a persistence perspective? Keeping in mind that you're doing some angel investing, what would you like to see come out from entrepreneurs?
That's a tough one, man. I think liquid staking is something I'm super excited about, but that's what we are doing
Uh-huh.
as well. But yeah, I mean, I think some of the things around, like especially in the Indian context, I think just the gamification of investments, because I think a lot of younger folks do want to get into investments, and I think we've seen that especially in the wake of COVID. We've seen that
Mhm.
because historically speaking, we've seen our parents like put money into a fixed deposit or buy gold
Mhm.
or real estate. But I think folks our age, or a little bit younger, a little bit older, interest rates have fallen, so you don't really get the same kind of returns from a fixed deposit.
Mhm. Mhm.
Gold is not that exciting. It's sort of been moving sideways. Real
Mhm.
estate is a little bit harder to get into. So I think a lot of folks want to get exposure to stocks, but then there's not, obviously the market has been doing really well, like the Indian stock
Mhm.
market, but it's not companies that people can relate to. And so in that context, I think it's super interesting and exciting. Some of the folks that are trying to gamify the investment aspect of it for like Gen Z and millennials yeah, in India. So I think that's something that's super interesting.
Absolutely. Tushar, so as you would be able to see, there is quite some love that you're getting showered upon by our community members. I think some of them
Yeah.
are already your friends as well. So good to see
Yeah.
that, that sort of vibe, that positive nature is being, positive. I mean, respected as well as, very well received. Right. So keep up the good work, Tushar. Just to leave on a context with, how do you say people reach out to you if they sort of saw a lot of value in persistence and want to get involved?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm, reachable on, I think Twitter is the best place.
Mhm.
Otherwise, LinkedIn works as well, but I get a lot of spam on LinkedIn. But I think those are the best, best places. But I'm active on other platforms as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. So guys, thank you for tuning in. I think from my side, I've seen the Tushar and his team's journey for quite some time. I would definitely recommend you to have a look at persistence as a project. Though we do not give financial advices, I would definitely see how. I would love for you to check out the XPRT token. Keep an eye on that. I've been doing that myself. So if you want to support the team from the outside, that would be a good way as well, right? Apart from that, I just want to say that it is amazing to see friends build such amazing protocol companies. And Tushar, thank you so much for coming and taking out time to talk to us, man.
Thank you, Akshay.
Bye bye, guys. Bye, Tushar.
Bye.